But yeah, just before we get started, I guess hello and welcome everyone. For those who haven't joined us on a CodeBase on the Couch before, we are CodeBase. We are a tech cluster working with startups across the UK. We have 3 locations, our headquarters in Edinburgh, and then we've got Stirling and Aberdeen. So the CodeBase on the Couch webinars kind of started back in April, and they're kind of designed to kind of connect the community over kind of tech topics, things that maybe startups are struggling with, and just the community during this time. So we're still trying to connect and support our community wherever possible. So joining us today, we have Nile from NoCode. So thank you so much for joining us today, Nile. We will have a Q&A chat at the end of the talk from Nile. So if you have any questions or any comments, feel free to use the Q&A button or the chat function at the bottom of your Zoom. So yeah, if you're ready now, if you want to get started.
Yeah, cool. Thanks very much, Vanessa. So hi everyone. Here to talk to you about NoCode. So probably some of you have heard about it before, but the idea I really want you to go away with today is that you can build your startup or your next business idea without finding a technical founder, without learning tech skills yourself. So we'll get into it in a little bit. I think my goal here is not so much to educate you on how to build your first startup, but more to show you what NoCode can do and hopefully make you a little bit curious at kind of going off and trying it out. So my name is Nile Frater. I've been doing kind of no-code and no-code related things for probably about 6 or 7 years at this point. I've got a bit of background in tech and in kind of software engineering, even a little bit of hacking when I was a wee bit younger, and kind of at this point now had a career that kind of spans a little bit of the startup world and a little bit of the kind of corporate world as well. Done a lot of work with companies at Lloyds Bank and places like that. So let's dive straight into it and talk about NoCode. So what is NoCode? In essence, NoCode essentially refers to an ecosystem of tools and platforms that let you build software without coding. You could call it a market, you can call it an audience or a concept, whatever. And probably most of you in some way have seen no-code tools, or at least early days no-code tools. Probably the first one that I know of a way back in the day was a tool called Dreamweaver. And it essentially you drag and drop websites together, and it put out some pretty nasty code that you could upload or give to a developer or something like that. And then coming a little bit more kind of modern, the 2010s, you probably started to see things like, WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, all these kind of sites, and probably most of you have heard of Shopify as well. But no-code as a sort of concept has really exploded in the last kind of year and a half, 2 years, and you've started to see, loads of tools pop up. And I've got a little picture here that's sort of a roundup of the scene that's going about at the minute. And you can see there's tons of different tools and tons of different categories. But the idea of no-code is you can drag and drop your way to a mobile app, to a web app, to some sort of database, whatever it is that your business needs to power it. And typically no-code will also let you add on payments, newsletters, SMS, push notifications, everything that you see, when you use things every day like Airbnb or Facebook or Reddit or these kind of things. And it's become super popular primarily because, in the minute in the world, something like 1% or 3 or 4% or something like that of people can code. And no code is just really opening this up for everybody. And you have various different levels. Some people have got the tech skills to make a nice basic website. Other people are building full applications. But ultimately, the last couple of years is really the first time since the kind of birth of the internet that you can put your hand in your heart and say, anyone can build a business without code, and that is very much a business in the tech sector. I think the only other thing I'll say in the definition of no code is this. Primarily it refers to being able to build software without code, but I see it a little bit more holistically. I think the no-code movement is very much about all these different things that previously professionals and educated professionals could do, no code is now unlocking these things, and that's stuff like design. There's tons of tools now that make it easier and easier to build a user interface, to design a logo. There's software out there that makes it possible to build video games. There's stuff out there to do, podcasting, or automating things, or managing finances, or just anything at this point, data science. You just have all these new tools that are emerging really quickly that are abstracting away from the code or the professional skills and letting people do something they couldn't do before. So I'm going to talk a wee bit about kind of my personal experience with NoCode. All the screenshots you're seeing here are kind of some stuff I've made over the last few years. So Support Heroes up the top left was actually a rebrand from a company called Dynamic Relations, which was a company I started building when I was 18. And the idea was that we would do live chat on behalf of other businesses. They pay a monthly subscription, and we kind of staff their web chat or that kind of thing. And I built the original website entirely without code in a tool called Webflow that I'll show you soon, and kind of built, all the back end stuff that let me take orders, take payments from customers, etc. And then over on the right, we've got something a little bit newer that I've only started building this year. It's called Press Hero, and it's essentially a platform that lets journalists and kind of entrepreneurs like yourselves connect and try and kind of build up those relationships. But it's a mobile app. It lets you search for people, buy credits, send submissions between each other, and as you can see in this screenshot, set up your profile and all that kind of thing. So a really featured mobile app. I've got this big one down in the middle, which was a little bit stupid. It was an idea I started last year called, I think it was Granagram. And the idea is, your grandparents, etc., are not terribly great with their phones. So instead of trying to text them a picture, you text it to this service, we print it out, we send it to them. And then over on the right where it says fix it for me, so this was an app called Janny Finder. And it was something that I built while I was consulting at Glasgow City Council. And the idea is that anybody who works for the council could report an issue with a building, be it a school or an office or something else that was owned by the council. And this was an interesting one because it was the first time I'd seen no code used in a corporate environment. This tool was essentially, you log in, on the screen here, you kind of put in a few details of where's the fault, what building is it in, has it got asbestos, that kind of thing, and it just works. And typically for a company like Glasgow or an organisation like Glasgow City Council, the process there, and any of you who work in the public sector will be familiar with this, the process there is you spec up the project over a couple of months, you go out to tender, you spend a few million quid, you get an agency in or a software house, and they eventually build this and test it. And before you know it, you've got a year-long project. We built Janny Finder in a day. We rolled it out and tried it out with people within a couple of weeks of that, once we got through all the kind of paperwork, and it was a really good demonstration of actually how quickly no code can help us move. And that's something I've found in one of my most recent gigs in Lloyds Bank, where in response to COVID-19 we've had a lot of kind of big operational challenges and things not going well, or people being off, or processes being kind of busier than usual, and no code has really helped us quickly build up all the little tools you need left, right and centre that replace spreadsheets, and let you kind of manage all this sort of stuff. So some of the stuff I'm still doing today, like Press Hero, etc. Some of it, like Support Heroes, like Granagram, failures. Janny Finder never quite made it to the light of day in Glasgow City Council. But let's talk about some of the stuff that does work in no code. One of the criticisms I frequently hear on Twitter or other places is no code looks really cool, but is it a little bit basic? Actually, can you make any money with it? And the answer is absolutely yes. A couple of companies here you've probably heard of are Scott's Cheap Flights. And what Scott's Cheap Flights does is they send you cheap flights to your inbox. So they'll find flights that are mispriced or that kind of thing. But that company in 2018 did 4 million in revenue, which is a staggeringly huge number, and they don't have any code. I mean, they might have some now, but certainly at the time they essentially ran a newsletter. They did all the kind of gathering the details themselves manually. The payments all ran through a no code provider. And then another example you've probably heard of is Kylie Cosmetics. So it's Kylie Jenner's cosmetics company. Rumoured to be doing $1 billion at the minute, but when it started out, it was essentially running on a Shopify type site, built without code, and doing 300 million. And the interesting thing with a lot of these kind of companies like Kylie's and others is typically it will be Shopify or another platform like this that they sit on top of, and I'll show you how you can find out more about them later. But there's a whole world out there of people who are making templates or components or pictures or just anything you need to take a basic tool and make it better looking or get a nice template on it or a nice theme. They're both big numbers, right? I think it's quite hard for some of us to kind of look at this and go, well, can I really see myself running a $300 million company? Maybe you can, but let's look at something that's a little bit kind of, smaller, bootstrapped, that doesn't have somebody like Kylie Jenner behind it making it successful. I don't quite know how you pronounce this. I think it's Lenoke, don't know, but this online tutoring site just started in 2017. And they're already doing 60 grand a month or 720,000. It's built entirely with no-code tools joined together. There is not a coder involved. Press Hunt's another great example, started in 2018. One of the things I do on the side is I run a little investment company called Concrete Capital, and we buy really small SaaS applications or people from the kind of who have built applications that are considered sort of indie hackers. Typically companies that are doing a couple of grand a month in revenue, but I look at them and I say I can really scale that. NoCode.tech was one of those, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the guys who run Press Hunt, we recently bought a company from them so they could focus on Press Hunt, and it's built purely, again, we no-code tools. They've got Airtable, which I'm going to show you. They've got a tool called Parabola, which I'll talk about. And they're doing about £22,000 a month, or dollars, I should say, which averages out about $250,000 a year. So if you ever see a criticism, no-code businesses can't make money, it is not true. I had to really filter through to get ones that, from the gigantic list, essentially. So let's talk about no-code and how it actually works. So I've kind of said already, no-code is a concept. There's not one tool or one platform that's called no-code. It's a series of different tools that join together, some of which you've heard of, some of which you won't. And I gave some examples earlier, like WordPress, Squarespace, sites like this. But I'm going to show you a few different ones here, and then I'll give you a little demo of how they look on my computer as well. So in terms of how software is put together, some of you in this call might be able to code, some of you might be totally new to it. I imagine quite a lot of you have heard of some of the terms I've got in front of you here, front end, back end, workflows, integrations. Typically a front end is, the part of a website or an application or a bit of software that you physically interact with. If you go on Google, the little box and the little Google button, that's the front end. The back end is typically where the data behind that sits, and sometimes little bits of logic as well. When you search something in Google, it's going through a gigantic database that probably somewhere looks a little bit like that spreadsheet there. But you're going through a gigantic database of all the different results on the internet, what they all mean and whether or not they match your result. And then the other part you get, which is sometimes referred to as back end as well, but as the integrations or the workflows, it's the bit that says when I click something in the front end, what happens in the back end? How is the term that I put in the front end transformed? If let's say I log in or I sign up to a new service, the thing that checks if my username is long enough, if it's got a special character, if my password matches my other password, that's the integration or the workflow that kind of sits between the front end and between the back end before any data ever gets put in there. Now, as I said, this is not meant to be educational. You don't necessarily need to understand these concepts at the minute, but hopefully they'll make sense as we go through. So you kind of get these different components, and in the no-code space, you typically get tools that specialize really well in one of them. So Webflow, pictured here, is an amazing tool for building websites. You can do beautiful things with it. Airtable is a sort of database, but it feels a lot like a spreadsheet. If you've ever used Excel, it will make total sense to you. And then Zapier is a really popular tool. On the kind of consumer side, some of you might have heard of a tool called If This Then That basically says, if I am near my house, then turn on my lights or turn on my speaker or something like that. Well, Zapier's kind of the business version. And so you can get tools that sort of connect these together, or you can get all-in-one builders like Adalo, where the front end's done in the builder, the back end's done there, the integrations are all done. Let me show you a few of them, and you can see how they look. So I'll show you Webflow first. This is a no-code site. I don't know if anyone's kind of had a look at it off the back of the registration page, but if I go to zooms in my way. If I go to NoCode.tech, then you can sort of see this is what the website looks like. If you go and browse it right now, you'll see exactly the same thing. Whereas here you can see this is where I can change it. I can put all sorts of stuff here, type it in. Now I'm going to just fix that because I will be publishing this site at one point during the call. But you can kind of see I can go in here, I can change things. If I want to change, say, the color of my text, you can see down on the right hand side here, there's a little option to do that. Now you're probably looking at this going, okay, that's a lot of stuff in one screen, and it is. Webflow is, it takes a little bit of time to learn some of these tools, and the no code scene is all about having tools that are simple but not very flexible, right up to tools that are more complex but less flexible. Let's look at another couple. So we'll have a wee look at member stack here. Actually, I'm going to show that in the next slide. Let's talk about Airtable. So Airtable is the one I pointed out that feels a little bit like Excel. This is a database that I use for all the different no-code tools that we show in NoCode.tech. And you can see I've got difficulties next to them, tags, brief description. I can edit all of this stuff. It's just a database tool. And then if I come away into Zapier, essentially, this is where all the different workflows behind no-code work. So on no-code, we have a login, we have commenting, we have the ability to add a post or a tutorial, and you can see I've got all sorts of different flows here. And what this one kind of says is, when we get a new member, let's get them a little picture, let's add them into our no-code site on Webflow, let's make a little row on Airtable for them, and then importantly, let's add them to a newsletter. That's probably a wee bit confusing at the minute, but bear with me, we'll come back to it. And then we're going to look at Adalo. That's me moving out the way of the Zoom bar there. So Adalo is a kind of more of an all-in-one builder. You can do everything you need to do as part of your app here. Now again, you're going to look at this and go, it's quite a confusing interface, but take a little bit of a close look. You'll see you've got screens here, the way you would have on a, if you think about how any iOS or Android or iPhone app looks, you've got all sorts of different things here. And if I look at this screen here, this is my sign up screen. This probably looks really familiar from any application ever that you've used. You've got an email, give me a password, hit sign up, and you can actually see here that the kind of options Adalo is giving me is as simple as, do you want to log the user in? Do you want to sign the user up? Again, this is all going to be confusing. Don't take anything from it other than to say you can sort of see that you have screens that feel familiar in front of you. You can see the sort of actions someone might take. So let's go back to the presentation, talk a wee bit more. So that's a kind of quick overview of the tools. I'm going to tell you about one in particular that we've touched on here, but let me explain it a little bit. So as I kind of pointed out in the previous slide, you have either different components or you have all-in-one builders, and the no-code scene's fairly split between them. Some of the all-in-one builders you get are Adalo, as I've shown you. You also get Bubble. You also get Boundless. There's tons, and I'm going to show you how you can see them all soon. But if you want to get into it a little bit more, if you want a little bit more flexibility, if you're building an application that's not, a simple online store, or it's not a mobile app, it's a little bit more complex, then you might want to get a little bit more in depth. So we have a thing here that kind of people in the no-code space call the WAMS stack, and it's essentially Webflow, Airtable, Member Stack, and Zapier, and these each give you a different part. Webflow, as I've said, lets you build the front end, and Airtable the database. Zapier lets you do the integration, but the bit Member Stack does is it lets you create logins on any website. So if you've ever had a website where or you've ever thought about making a website where people should be able to log in, see private content that's only for them, or you want them to be able to sign up and pay 20 quid a month for a plan or something like that, Member Stack's the tool that you use. And so when you combine all of these, you kind of realize you can do a little bit of anything, because Zapier is going to let me connect, as you've sort of seen there when I demoed it, and also in the picture, you know, I can connect to Airtable, I can put people in a newsletter. Zapier has something like 2,000 different applications it integrates with. And you're talking about things like Gmail, like Google Calendar, like Outlook, like you know, the finance software Xero. Almost anything you can think of probably integrates with Zapier. And so if you combine that, you've got your logins with MemberStack, you can store whatever data you like in Airtable, and you can build whatever front end you like in Webflow, then you can start to see that you could essentially build anything you like. You know, if you wanted to build Airbnb, then Webflow is going to let you build all the listings. Airtable is going to hold all your data. You know, if you imagine a spreadsheet view, you might have something that says name of the property, location, etc. Then MemberStack is going to let people log into your version of Airbnb, and Zapier is going to connect it all together. So with that in mind, I think the best way for me to kind of demonstrate this is to build something. And this is always a little bit risky. Sometimes these things just for some inexplicable reason fail because I'm on camera in front of people. But I'm going to try and show you how to build something. And what I don't want to do necessarily is I don't want you to kind of take notes and go away thinking, right, I know how to replicate the thing he just built. Instead, what I want to show you is the speed of this and how quickly you can get to not just a pretty looking website, but a little bit of functionality. We're going to use Webflow, we're going to use Airtable, and we're going to use Zapier. We're not going to use MemberStack purely because I don't feel like I've got enough time to show you it properly in the time we've got. But we are going to use those three tools, and we're going to see where we get to. So we're going to start off in Webflow. So this is my site I've already got, but I'm going to just go and create a totally new page. And I'm kind of doing this in the fly a wee bit, so excuse spelling mistakes and anything like that. But let's make this, let's call it a CodeBase page. So we'll create that. And again, I'm going to be clicking a lot of things here, but I just want to give you an idea of kind of almost how simple it is. I'm experienced at it, I know what I'm doing with it, but it's not hard to get to this level. So essentially, Webflow gives you a bunch of pages, a little CMS or a database there, etc. But up here, let's just add in elements, and we get different layouts we can start from. So let's drag on a few things that probably feel familiar from every website ever, essentially. We've got a nav bar. What else have we got here? We've got a kind of hero section. That's where you sort of sell your story. And then let's say we want to add in let's put a subscribe form in there. So pop that there. So you look at this, you quickly see a very, very basic website layout that I've built, and I could configure this, you know, I could make the text sit over there on the right or vice versa, it doesn't really matter. But, you know, let's say we want to make this interface look a little bit good. So, you know, we're going to add something to the navigation. So we'll click that, that lets us add a little picture. What we got, let's just pick this baby. And that should show up there in just a second, or not. I'll click something wrong there. So this is what I'm talking about. The minute you go on a call, things just magically don't work. All right, we'll come back to that. So in theory, I should be clicking that. I should be getting a picture. Let me see if I can do it on this big one. See if we get a giant baby. There we go. So we got the baby up. And that's just because it happens to be the first picture sitting there. But let's say, okay, we're going to make a website that lets you share and receive baby tips. So we're going to call this Want Some Tips for Parenting. And it's literally as simple as typing some of that stuff up, and we'll say, you know, sign up now for facts on parenting and looking after babies and changing nappies. And you can quickly tell I know nothing about parenting. And then we're going to do a wee sign up. And you'll see below here we added a little form in. So Webflow basically lets you do forms, and forms let you collect information. You've seen this in pretty much every website ever, but you want to collect an email, a name, you know, some sort of contact information, select a couple of options. We'll call this one our baby tips form. And let's say we want to, so, you know, sign up and give us a tip. We'll send this a lot, so say sign up and give us a tip, and we'll send you some more. So we've got a form here, it collects email, but we're asking people for a tip, so we're going to have to get that. So we've got all sorts of different elements in here, you know, buttons, pictures, videos, but we're probably looking for a little input to get somebody's parenting tip. So let's put that there, and we're going to call that tip, and we're going to say, for example, serve baby milk at 37 degrees. That might be true, it might not, I don't know. You can tell me later in the Q&A. And then let's put a little label on there so people know what they are looking for. And you've got to just drag it in the right place there. That's easy to fix. Oops, no, it's not. Sorry about that. That's just my poor motor skills. So we'll just do, what's your tip? And then let's also do a little name one as well. So I'm just going to copy and paste these. Just in case you're wondering how it's magically appearing. So we'll do, what's your name? And we'll change that field to say, for example, my name is John Smith, and we'll call that our name field. So we've put a really basic website together here. It's got a nice little picture. I'm going to try that one once more. Yep, that was my mistake. It's working now. So we've got a nice looking website. We've designed it a little bit. We've put a little bit of text on it, and so far I think it's taken us about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, because I can't do things properly. We've then got a form here. It's got our name, it's got our tip, it's got our email, and it's called a baby tips form. It's going to go somewhere. There's a lot of things you can do that says once somebody clicks the button, the submit button, the subscribe button, whatever, take them to a certain page. Let's just do a little thanks page. So we're going to say go to thanks. And again, at the end of the call, I'm going to show you all the resources you need to actually learn to do this yourself. Don't worry so much about the exact bits. But, you know, we're going to make a wee page here called thanks. We'll create that again. And let's just drag in, let's just do a quick overlay. We'll do the giant baby behind it as a little picture. Getting a bit sick of seeing the baby's face at this point, probably. So there you go. And then we'll just say something like, you know, thanks. We'll send you some tips soon. And then we've just got a button here, and one of the things Webflow lets you do is link between all your pages. So if I just click that, and you can see I've got a bunch of pages from the NoCode site. I think the one we created was called CodeBase. There, it's there. You'll see that working in a minute. Let's just do return to home. So that's taken me a couple of minutes to build. Let's publish that. Now, I've got a gigantic website that this is part of called NoCode, so that's going to take a couple of minutes to publish. We'll come back and see it. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to create a little database that's going to collect all the baby tips. So we go into Airtable. This is what Airtable looks like if you ever log into it. We're going to add a base, which is essentially Airtable's word for a new spreadsheet. We're going to call that baby tips. I'm going to go in there, and you can see I've got some basic fields here. It's a lot like Excel. I can just delete columns or add new columns in. So I'm going to add one. I'm going to call that tips. We've got name already. Let's do email address. So we've got them. We'll call this our users table. And this is essentially where everyone who signs up is going to send their stuff. But you can see in 2 seconds flat, I've set that up. I could add any other field I wanted, all sorts of different types of fields, but we don't need those at the minute, so let's not worry about it. Let's go back and see if we're published. We're still going. Oh, there we go. So if I click that, that's taken us to the thanks page. And then we'll go back to the CodeBase one. And there we go. So that's our page. It's live right now. If you go into your web browser and do NoCode.tech/CodeBase, it will show up. But right now, the subscription button won't do anything. So we're going to go and fix that. So this is where we're going to use Zapier to connect something up. Let me get out of my sign up flow. So Zapier, as I say, lets you connect different things together. You click make a Zap, and you'll quickly see you get to pick all sorts of apps. Now we're going to be looking for Webflow, but there's tons of stuff in here you might recognize, like Google Sheets, Slack, Twitter. And if I click Twitter as an example, Zapier is all about when something happens or when something triggers, do this action. And so if you monitor Twitter, you can do, for example, when I tweet something new, when somebody tweets something, when somebody likes something, etc. Trigger, and there's all sorts of different stuff. When I get a new follower, do this, and you can imagine certain workflows like, when I get a new follower, put it into Airtable, so I've got a list of all my followers when they followed me, and I can go back and message them or something like that. Similarly, Gmail is another example. When I get a new email, do this. So you could have something that says, when I get an email into support, my support inbox, put it in an Airtable so that my agents can work through it one by one. But we're going to use Webflow, and we're going to say when a new form submission. So what we want to happen is when I come here and I go, right, my name's Nile Frater, my tip is don't teach babies how to fly, and my email is nile@hey.com. I subscribe, then my expectation is when I do that, Zapier is going to notice it's going to hit my database. So let's go and see if we can make that happen. So we're going to do form submission. We just need to pick my Webflow account. You can set up multiple. So it's going to ask me to pick my site, and that's a no-code site I've set this up as part of. It's going to ask for my form. So I've got the baby tips form. I think that's what it was called. Let's just double check. That was called the oh, no, there. What's that called? The baby tips form. Still not on it. There's a form, sorry. Baby tips form. Okay, so we've got that. We've connected that. Now, what Zapier is going to do, you obviously just watched me put a little subscription through. It's going to see if it can find that data. And there we go. So you can see in the little bits here, you've got my name, you've got Don't Teach Babies How to Fly, you've got the email. So we've just sent data from a live website right now into Zapier without writing a line of code. And then, so it's basically saying when that happens, what do we want to do? So let's pick Airtable because we want to put a new record into our database. And again, you can update records, you can find them, but we want to create a record. So we're going to say continue. And you'll notice this from the last step, you just select Airtable. We're going to choose a base. So let's see if we can find our baby tips one. There we go, right at the bottom. And we're going to look for our users table. So you'll see again that all corresponds with everything we had here, our baby tips base, our users table. And you can see the little bits of data here. So this is where Zapier is really good. Zapier will let you kind of either type into a field or put certain bits of data into it. So if I click there, it's going to show all the data that I've got. I don't know why I'm pointing at the screen with my hand right now, as if you can see that. But when I click there, you're going to see all the different data options come through. So this is essentially saying these are all the form options you've got. This is the example data we've got, but you can pop it in. So I want my name to come up. I want to put in tips. So where's my tip? Here, it's at the bottom. And I want to put in my email address. And I want to continue. Now, this is where we test it. This is a big moment of truth. Hopefully this works, otherwise I'm going to embarrass myself. Okay. Let's just check Airtable, and there you go. Now I've got a bunch of blank rows. That's just because I accidentally created them while I was messing about, but there's my tip from the website. So what I can do, I can now put this on, and so that's live, that's entirely live. I can shut that screen. I can go back to, I can go right now on here, I can go to NoCode.tech /CodeBase. I can get that up. Okay, there's my page. Want some tips for parenting? Yes, I do. I can say, right, what's my name? It's Joe Blogs. What's my tip? It is be careful of how cunning babies are. Again, I clearly don't know much about kids. We'll do my other email address, which is nile.frater@gmail.com. Please don't spam me. And we'll hit subscribe. Should take me to my page. Cool, done. This is what we expected. Moment of truth. Let's see if it showed up in Airtable. There you go. So you guys right now can go onto your web browser, and if you go onto NoCode.tech /CodeBase, and if you go on that page, put in a tip, put in an email, put in your name, then it would show up in my screen right here, real time. So essentially what we've done there, now, a bit of a silly idea, bit of a kind of just throwing different things together, but we've demonstrated how you can connect 3 different tools together. We've demonstrated how you can capture people's emails. We've demonstrated how you can sort of plug in different applications that do different things. You know, you can easily imagine that I could have Zapier, you know, every time a new row is created here, I could have Zapier send out an email that's got all the baby tips from this entire, you know, Airtable in it, or whatever it might be. But you start to look at different business types this could be useful. You know, if you're starting a paid newsletter, or if you have a business that you're about to launch and you want to create a wait list, you know, all these different things. And this is just from an example that I've built in less than 10 minutes in front of you. It's really, really simple to do this stuff. And there's all sorts of things you could do to modify it. You know, we could easily spend a bit more time making our page look a little bit better, you know, changing this button so it says sign up and takes you down to the bottom, whatever else it might be. But the idea is, you can quickly connect together all these things. You can quickly have a database up and running. You can imagine, for example, how easily Vanessa could have built a website like that to take Zapier registrations and just have it come up to say, right, you know, Nile Frater wants to attend it, or Joe Blogs wants to attend it, you know, for the webinar. There's all sorts of stuff you can do with this, and this is absolutely the tip of the iceberg. There is a ton of stuff, and if I take my website, NoCode.tech, as an example, you know, it's a fairly basic website versus some of the stuff you see like Airtable or stuff like Airbnb or stuff like that. But the site essentially lists, you know, tons of different no-code tools, showcases people's kind of posts and all that sort of thing. So, you know, if I show you this here, if I go to NoCode.tech, you know, we've got all the different tools here, and this is all sitting in an Airtable database, the one I showed you. We have a showcase that's going to show you different things people have built without code. Again, all sitting in a database that just pulls out. And literally all of this, all these articles, this members area that's got a sign up, all of it was all done without code using Airtable, Webflow, Zapier. So tons of stuff you can do there. I just wanted to give you a really, really quick run through of, frankly, just how simple it is to join this stuff together. You can easily see if you yourself went and spent an hour in that or something, you know, you could build all sorts of functionality. So let me tell you how you can learn a bit more about it. So as I mentioned, NoCode is a massive website, loads of tools on it. We've got 200 plus tools on it that will show you how to do all sorts of things. And I put a few examples below. Webflow you've seen. Elliot is an alternative to Shopify. You can go on there, you can sign up, you can create an online store and start selling stuff around the world that handles shipping and all that kind of thing. Zapier, Airtable we've looked at, Adalo. Bubble is a little bit like Webflow, except it's got everything built in. You can drag and drop really complex web applications, and you can do all sorts of stuff on there. You know, yeah, you can build web pages and pass data between them and all that, but you can also put barcode scanners in there, or you can have maps, or you can have, you know, essentially anything you can think of. One of these applications can do it. If you are sitting with any kind of business idea, you can likely make it happen. Another one I just wanted to point out there was VoiceFlow. It lets you build Alexa apps, so without code you can have something that goes, Alexa, do XYZ, and it'll do it. So you want to see some tools right now, NoCode.tech is the place to be. We're also launching a thing called NoCode Academy. I was trying really, really hard to launch it for today. I think it's going to be this weekend now. Just we ran into a couple of issues towards the end. But NoCode Academy is going to launch this weekend, and it'll just be initial in beta, but it's essentially a directory of 500 plus different tutorials that teach you all sorts of stuff, like, you know, how to connect all these things up with Zapier, how to clone Twitter, Facebook, Airbnb, Reddit, Quora, Instacart, any service you can think of. It will show you how to wrangle data, anything you want to set up. Academy will show you how to do it. It's going to be our first product. We're going to have workshops coming out off the back of it. But if you're looking at this thinking, wow, I could save myself 10 grand, 20 grand, or a lifetime of pain and not have a co-founder and set this up myself, NoCode Academy is the place to be. And if you visit that link, you can sign up to it, and I'll make sure you get an invite in the next couple of days. And yeah, in the meantime, if you want to keep in touch with me, my email is there, my Twitter's there. And yeah, are there any other questions?
Cool, thank you so much, Niall. virtual round of applause. That was really interesting and really cool to kind of see that kind of being built in the space of like 10 minutes. Something actually I probably wouldn't even be able to think that I could do in a year, let alone 10 minutes. So yeah, it's really great to see that. But yeah, if anyone has any questions for Nile, feel free to pop it in the chat or in the Q&A box. But the one thing that I was kind of thinking about in your earlier slides, so how can you measure kind of success using these tools? Because you said like some things might not work out, or some things that you had built hadn't worked out. So how do you kind of measure success, and how do you kind of get any kind of feedback on the back of your applications?
Yeah, so I guess in that sense, no code is no different from code. And the thing I always say to people, a lot of people ask, am I better building a business in code or no code? And the thing I tell them is, your users don't care. The majority of people don't know that the mobile app they're using is built with code or without code. They don't know if the website is or isn't. And as a result, the tools that you use to measure traditional software today are the same tools you can use to measure no code. So things like Google Analytics, Mixpanel, any of these kind of sites that let you track who's coming to your website, what pages did they click on, what buttons did they click on. All of that works really simply with no code as well. And as an example, we use Google Analytics with the NoCode.tech website to kind of keep track of all that. And there's lots of different tools as well that we've used. We used to use one called Scoops. I think it just died. But there's the kind of various ones like Scoops or Crisp that we use to chat with users on the website or kind of gather different bits of feedback. So the really good thing about most no-code platforms is they will let you add a little bit of code or add add-ons from other parties. So whenever you go and you see these different tools that say, just copy and paste this little bit of text into your website and the tool will work, all of that works with no code as well.
Cool, great. Stephen from CodeBase has just said, it was a great talk. Well done, Niall. Super clear and lucid explanation. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
We had a question that came in from Lisa during your talk, and she's asking, how can you establish whether your idea is something that might be suitable to build with no code or not?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It is one of the biggest sources of debate in the no-code community, and probably varies a little bit. And probably worth saying, actually, while we're here, if anyone has an idea in their head right now that they're wondering how they can build it in no-code, if you just ask it in the chat, I'll give you my best attempt at how you might be able to do it. But how you do it, essentially, it's really about trying to figure out what is it your application actually needs to do. If you sit down with a bit of paper, do you need to be able to sign up users, take payments? Do you need to be able to show a list of information? If you think about, I don't know what something we'll all use, let's say Rightmove. I look at that and go, okay, that's a gigantic property website. It's got pictures and all sorts of things. But actually, if you think about it, all it is it has a login, it has a list, and there's a list of each property on Rightmove, flat with the pictures, with some information about it, like 2 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, all that kind of thing. And if you look at that, you can kind of start to break it down into what we call CRUD, or create, read, update, delete, which is when you start to think about your application in terms of data. So if I have Rightmove, then I'm either creating, as in I'm adding a new house or flat property to the website, or I'm updating it, as in I'm saying, right, the flat's up today, but tomorrow it's sold, or the next day it's fallen through. I am reading the data, as in here's a web page with all of the different bits of information in the property. Or of course I'm deleting a property which is, this isn't for sale, get it off. And if you really think about your app, if you can break it down to everything broadly fitting within that, then 100% you can do it without code. Where it starts to get more complicated is if you want to do things like machine learning, or introducing more complicated stuff, then it gets a little bit harder to figure out. Broadly, what I would say is, for someone who has no experience in no code, the best thing you can do is simplify it down to a minimum viable product and build up from there. If you're kind of familiar with computers, if you've done a little bit of coding before and kind of know how software fits together, the best thing you can do is look through a bunch of tools, and the ones I've listed here are some of the most popular. Look through those and evaluate, can I sort of see how this stuff joins together? No code the final thing I would say on it is no code tends to have a little bit of an 80-20 problem, but that problem is changing every month. And what I mean by that is typically you can build 80% of what you wanted without code easily, hands down. That last 20%, I am not saying you can't build that without code. What I'm saying is sometimes you have to make a little bit of a compromise, or sometimes you have to find another tool that joins in and makes it a little bit more of a pain. But generally, you can do 80-20, and I would say as well, most people overrate how complicated their apps are. So absolutely worth having a wee look at all the different tools, having a wee think about that, trying to draw it out in paper, try to get it down to what are the pages, how does the data move between the pages, and what does it look like, create, read, update, delete. That should help you figure it out, but always a hard one to answer.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned MVPs. We did have a chat with Ian at Bad Dinosaur about MVPs, so if you missed that webinar, it is on our YouTube channel if you want to kind of explore that avenue. But yeah, we had another question coming from Neil. Hi, Neil. What are risks of building a business using a no-code strategy?
Risks. So probably the biggest thing is you're on a platform. If you write something on code today, it's yours, it's your code. You can put it anywhere. The code might get old, or people might stop supporting tools, but broadly it's your code and you own it. More the issue you have with no code is, take Webflow. If Webflow folded tomorrow, I don't know why it would, it's got tons of money, it's growing, no code space is growing, but if Webflow folded tomorrow and disappeared off the face of the earth, my business would fail overnight. And that's kind of the biggest risk. You're essentially building on top of other people's platforms, and so you've got to play by their rules. As I say, it's growing, no code tools are generally very buoyant, but you do take that risk. With that said, tends to be the protected bit of your business is your database and all that kind of thing. Usually you can export that. Webflow does let you export the website as code. So a lot of no-code tools do let you export things, but you are probably taking a risk that if one of the platforms disappears, your business is going to be off for at least a few days, if not forever, while you fix it. What a lot of people do is they'll build something in no-code, and then once their business is making money, and I don't mean $1,000 a month, I mean their business is making 10, 20K, can support a couple of developers, and I mean that a month, that's when people will start to say, well, should I stay in no code or should I move off of it? But I think the thing that's interesting about the no code space and that's really wild about it is it's growing so fast to the point where the market is doubling every couple of months for no code. It's growing so fast that the gap between, here's where you should start no code and here's where you should stop it and move to code, it's just growing and growing and growing. And it gets to the point where for me, I don't really want to go back to coding, nor do I really intend to.
That's a great answer. Hopefully that's answered your question, Neil. If not, send us another question. There's another question came through from Stephen. He says, is no code a good starting point, or would you say it's something that you can use for the long run?
Yeah, so it's a similar thing. It's an amazing starting point, definitely, but I absolutely think it's something I can use for the long run. And I think this is starting to kind of follow the trend of the tools. Webflow has been around for a very long time, and it's been really good for a very long time. I started using it in, I think, 2013, 2014, and it's completely replaced the way I build websites at all. I have not really written any major sort of front-facing website, HTML, CSS, front-facing code for years now, other than the occasional little edit here and there, because Webflow not only makes it easy, but makes me better at it. It is easier for me to design really beautiful interfaces in Webflow than it is for me to hand code them. Back-end stuff, I didn't start using no code fully on it until probably the last couple of years because the tools weren't there. But now everything I build is without code. I'm trying to remember the last time I wrote code is when I had a kind of mini startup idea for doing mad computer vision with street cameras, which is definitely still far beyond what no code can do. But yeah, 100% you can use it for the long run. And I think the interesting thing about it is quite often, if you're I don't know if anyone on this call is a developer, but if you are, you may find a no code tool can help you do a certain bit of development like front end better than you can do it without code.
Awesome. Yeah, if anyone has any more questions, I think maybe we have time for one or two now if you're trying to get them in. But I guess I had a question, but I guess you kind of answered it already when I was kind of thinking once your company, your application starts kind of growing, is no code strong enough to kind of support that growth? But I think you kind of answered that already. And
Yeah, I think the scale is definitely there, and the ecosystem just keeps growing and growing. You know, typically someone will build an application, then they want to be able to move that to mobile, then they want to be able to have a newsletter, then they want to take bigger and bigger payments. You know, when people talk about scale, it tends to be more about that. A lot of these platforms as well can scale better than you could as one person writing code. You know, the thing is, in Webflow, so we're about to launch No Code Academy, as I mentioned, and that will go on Product Hunt. And the last time we were in Product Hunt, we were the top product of the day. And so my expectation is that's probably going to drive 5,000, 10,000 people to the website, something like that, on top of the kind of several tens of thousands that we get every month and every week. And I don't have to think about that in the slightest. You know, where I work in Lloyds Bank, we have to do massive preparation exercises. We have to try and figure out how many people are going to hit the website, what's going to happen, because if it goes down, it's our problem. With Webflow, that's never ever going to happen, you know, or any other no-code tool really. They're so big, they're supporting so many people that they're already dealing with millions of users and investing in that. So some of the stuff you get when you use no-code tool solutions is scale is built in, you know, the integrations are built in. Usually some of the complicated stuff like handling payments or email, if anyone here has ever tried to do their own email, it is a total nightmare because you get blocked by everybody's inbox for looking like spam. All of that's handled and abstracted away. All you have to think about is, what does my application look like? And you saw yourself, I literally clicked the button and it's live and everybody in this call can see it today, you know. And probably the other thing to add on to that, the thing that no code kind of gives you is, and it's sort of what I was saying about the developer point, it will let you do things that you're not good at really easily. You know, everybody on here, regardless of your background, should be able to design a good looking website in no code because it makes it easy. Tons of templates, tons of things you can drag and drop in, and lots of stuff that it just makes it, you know, one click, no hassle. You don't necessarily have to have an eye for it. You don't necessarily have to know what you're doing. No code makes a lot of that really, really simple for you.
yeah, I think you definitely demonstrated that earlier on how easy it is.
Yeah.
But if no one has any more questions, I guess we'll wrap up. But if you do end up thinking of something later on, then Niall's got his contact details up on the screen there if you want to take a note of it. But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Niall. That was a really interesting talk, and I think I definitely got a lot out of that as well. So another virtual round of applause for you guys. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, guys. We don't have one lined up next week, but we will have another talk about creativity and also a really interesting talk about zebras coming up soon. So keep an eye on the CodeBase website for that, and there's lots of other events and things happening there as well. So yeah, one last time, thank you so much, Niall, for joining us. And thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great weekend. And maybe if you decide to start no coding, then share with us what you've made. Cool. Thank you so much.
Cheers, everyone. See you later. Bye.